The encounter. The planet was quiet. Too quiet. Alex stepped carefully through the thick, blue grass, his boots making soft crunching sounds with every step. The sky above shimmered with two suns, casting long shadows over the strange landscape. His ship, a small exploration craft, sat a few hundred meters behind him. This was supposed to be a routine scouting mission. Scan the terrain, collect samples, and return. But something felt off. Alex wasn't sure why, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He stopped near a cluster of tall, purple trees that twisted like spirals into the sky. Pulling out his scanner, he swept the area. No life signs, just the usual plant readings. Still, his eyes darted around, scanning the trees and rocks carefully. That's when he saw her. She stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden behind one of the twisted trees. Her skin shimmered faintly, glowing with a soft, golden hue. Long, silver hair fell around her shoulders, and her eyes, bright and glowing, locked onto his. Alex froze. "Hello?" he said carefully, raising his hands to show he wasn't a threat. The girl didn't respond. She stepped out from behind the tree, watching him closely. Her movements were graceful, almost like she was gliding across the ground. She looked human, but not quite. Alex's heart pounded. He had heard stories of explorers encountering strange beings, but nothing like this. "Who are you?" he asked. Still no answer. Suddenly, Alex's scanner beeped loudly, and the girl flinched. She took a step back, her glowing eyes narrowing. "Wait. It's okay," Alex said quickly, switching off the device. "I'm not here to hurt you." Finally, the girl spoke, but not with words. Her voice echoed in his mind, soft but clear. "Humans are dangerous." Alex blinked in surprise. He glanced around, wondering if someone else was nearby. But no, it was just the two of them. "I'm not dangerous," he replied, feeling a little strange talking to someone telepathically. "I'm just here to explore." The girl tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. "You shouldn't be here," she said in his mind. "Leave." Alex took a slow step forward. "I can't leave yet. I have a mission." He smiled slightly, hoping to ease the tension. "Besides, I think we just made first contact. That's a pretty big deal." The girl frowned, and for a moment, Alex thought she might disappear into the trees. But then she took a step closer. Her glowing skin pulsed softly as she approached. Alex noticed how delicate she looked, but there was something powerful about her presence. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mira," she replied without hesitation. Alex nodded. "I'm Alex." As he reached out his hand, Mira stepped back suddenly, eyes wide with alarm. "Don't," she said sharply, her voice ringing in his head like an alarm bell. Alex froze, lowering his hand. "I was just trying to say hello." Mira seemed to relax slightly, but her glowing skin flickered as if she were struggling with something. "Your touch, it's dangerous to my kind," she said quietly. Alex frowned. "Dangerous? How?" Before Nira could answer, something rustled in the trees behind her. Nira's head snapped toward the sound, her body tense. Alex peered into the shadows but saw nothing. "Come with me," she said suddenly. "Where?" Nira didn't answer. She turned and started walking away, leaving glowing footprints in the grass. Alex hesitated for a moment before following her. His instincts told him this wasn't part of the mission, but something about Nira intrigued him. They walked silently through the forest, passing strange plants that glowed softly in the dim light. Nira led him to a small clearing where a large crystal-like structure jutted from the ground. It shimmered, almost humming with energy. Nira knelt beside the crystal, placing her hand on it gently. The crystal's glow intensified, and for a moment, Alex felt a strange warmth wash over him. "What is that?" he asked. Nira glanced at him, her eyes soft but distant. "It connects my world to yours," she said. But it's broken. Before Alex could ask what she meant, his foot accidentally brushed against Nera's arm. A jolt of energy shot through both of them. Nera gasped, her glowing skin flickering wildly. Alex stumbled back. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." But Nera wasn't listening. She sank to her knees, her breath shallow. "My body. Your touch. It's addictive," she whispered. Alex's eyes widened. He rushed to her side, unsure of what to do. "What do you mean? Are you okay?" Nera's glowing skin began to fade, her eyes fluttering closed. "Don't. Leave me," she whispered. Alex knelt beside her, panic rising in his chest. This wasn't just a scouting mission anymore. Something much bigger was happening, and he had a feeling it was only the beginning. The air felt heavier as Alex sat beside Nera, watching her glowing skin pulse faintly. The strange energy from their brief touch still lingered in his fingertips, like the hum of static after a storm. Nera's breathing was shallow, but steady, as she rested against the smooth surface of the crystal. Alex shifted nervously, unsure of what to do. He glanced around the clearing, but there were no signs of immediate danger, just silence, deep and unbroken. "I didn't mean to touch you," Alex said quietly, hoping Nera could hear him. Her eyes flickered open, glowing softly in the dim light. "I know." Alex hesitated. "What happened to you? You said my touch was addictive. I've never heard of anything like that before." Nera sat up slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she brushed her hair away from her face. She avoided his gaze, staring at the crystal instead. "It's not your fault," she said after a long pause. "You're kind. Humans. You're different. More than you realize." Alex frowned, leaning forward. "Different how?" Nera finally looked at him, her eyes searching his face as if deciding whether to tell him the truth. "My people don't touch," she said softly. "Not like you do. Physical contact. It's dangerous for us. It triggers something in our bodies, a chemical reaction we can't control." Alex's brow furrowed. "But why? What does it do?" Nera hesitated, then pressed her hand lightly against the crystal beside her. The surface shimmered under her touch, sending faint ripples of light outward. "It binds us," she whispered, "to whoever we make contact with. The more we touch, the harder it becomes to break away." Alex felt a chill creep down his spine. "So, you're saying, you're stuck with me now?" Nera smiled faintly, though there was sadness in her eyes. "Not yet, but if it happens again, it might become harder for me to leave." Alex rubbed the back of his neck, unsure of how to respond. He had never imagined first contact with an alien could lead to something like this. "Is that why your people avoid humans?" he asked. Nera's gaze darkened. "Yes, there was a time when our kind interacted freely with humans, long ago. But it didn't end well. The bonds became too strong. It nearly destroyed us." Alex leaned back against the grass, staring up at the twin suns slowly dipping toward the horizon. "I never thought shaking hands could cause that much trouble," he muttered. Nera's soft laughter echoed in his mind. "It's not just hands, Alex. It's something deeper. Your kind carries an energy, a force that affects us in ways even we don't fully understand." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of her words settling between them like an unspoken agreement. Alex's mind raced, trying to piece together what this could mean, not just for him, but for humanity as a whole. Finally, he broke the silence. "So, what now? Do I keep my distance? Pretend none of this happened?" Nera glanced at him, her glowing eyes softening. "I don't think that's possible anymore." She shifted closer, the faint glow of her skin illuminating the space between them. "There's something I need to show you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex tensed slightly, but nodded. "Okay. Lead the way." Nera stood and extended a hand toward the crystal. As her fingers brushed the surface, the entire structure lit up, casting shimmering patterns across the clearing. A faint hum vibrated beneath Alex's feet, and the ground beneath the crystal began to shift. Slowly, the crystal lifted, revealing a hidden pathway leading underground. A soft, golden light pulsed from below, beckoning them forward. "What is this place?" Alex asked, standing beside her. Nira's eyes darkened slightly. "A relic of the past, a part of the story my people tried to forget." Without another word, she stepped onto the pathway, disappearing into the glow below. Alex hesitated for only a moment before following her. The underground chamber was larger than Alex expected. Walls of smooth, dark stone stretched high above, laced with veins of glowing crystal that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Nira's skin. Strange markings lined the walls, symbols that Alex couldn't decipher but felt oddly familiar. Nira led him to the center of the chamber, where a massive circular platform lay embedded in the ground. At its center stood another crystal, this one much larger, radiating with intense golden light. Alex could feel the energy from it, thrumming softly in the air like the faint beat of a heart. "This is the heart of the bond," Nira said, stopping just short of the platform. Alex stepped closer, gazing up at the glowing structure. "It looks alive." "In a way, it is," Nira replied. "It's connected to the life force of my people. It amplifies our energy, strengthening the bonds we form." Alex reached out instinctively, but Nira grabbed his wrist gently, stopping him. "Don't," she said softly, her touch sending a faint shock through his arm. Alex pulled back quickly. "Right. No touching." "Got it." Nira smiled faintly, releasing his arm. "It's not just the crystal. If you interact with it, the bond between us could grow even stronger. And once that happens—" She didn't finish, but Alex understood. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. Nira's gaze softened. "Because I believe the bond isn't just a danger. It might be a key to something greater. I need to understand why this is happening, why your presence affects me this way." Alex nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling in his chest. Whatever this bond was, it was only the beginning. The chamber's soft golden light pulsed like a heartbeat, casting faint shadows along the smooth stone walls. Alex stood beside Nira, his eyes fixed on the massive crystal that dominated the center of the room. The air felt heavier here, as if the weight of ancient secrets pressed down on them. Nira remained silent, her glowing skin flickering in gentle waves. She stared at the artifact, but her expression was distant, almost troubled. Alex shifted uneasily. "This place, it feels old, like it's been waiting for something." Nira nodded, her voice echoing softly in his mind. "It has. For centuries, this chamber has remained sealed. Few of my people know it exists." Alex frowned. "Then why show me?" Nira's gaze met his, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "Because you woke it." Alex blinked. "I what?" She stepped closer to the artifact, tracing her fingers lightly along its smooth surface. As she touched it, the crystal flared brighter, and strange symbols appeared along its base. Symbols Alex had never seen before, but somehow recognized. He felt a tug deep within his chest, like the crystal was reaching out to him. "This artifact, it responds to your presence," Nira explained, keeping her hand on the crystal. "No one from my world has been able to activate it for generations, but the moment you arrived, it stirred." Alex took a step back, wary. "I didn't do anything. I barely know what this place is." Nira glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Maybe you don't have to. There is something in you, something familiar to this place. My people tried to erase all traces of your kind long ago, but the bond, it remains." Alex's head spun. "Wait, you're saying humans and your people were connected before. Why erase it?" Nira hesitated, then turned toward him fully. "There was a war," she said softly, "long before either of us were born. My people sought to harness the power of humans, the energy you carry. But the bonds we formed became dangerous, addictive. It led to conflict. When the war ended, the records were sealed, and all knowledge of humans was forbidden. Alex exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. So now what? Am I some kind of trigger for this thing? Nira's eyes softened. Perhaps, or perhaps you are the key to unlocking what my people fear most. Before Alex could respond, the crystal's glow intensified, and a low hum vibrated through the chamber. Alex stepped back instinctively. What's happening? Nira's hand trembled slightly against the crystal, but she didn't let go. Someone else is here. Alex's eyes darted to the entrance of the chamber. The pathway they had entered through was empty, but he could feel it too, a faint presence, lingering just beyond the threshold. Then, without warning, the glow from the crystal abruptly dimmed, and the chamber was plunged into an eerie silence. Nira pulled her hand away, turning sharply toward the entrance. They followed us. Who followed us? Alex asked, already bracing himself. Before Nira could answer, a tall figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. The figure was humanoid but draped in sleek, dark armor that seemed to ripple like liquid. His eyes glowed faintly beneath the helmet, piercing and cold. Nira stiffened. "Guardian," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. The figure stepped forward slowly, his gaze fixed on Alex. "You've broken the treaty," the Guardian said, his voice deep and unyielding. Alex narrowed his eyes. "What treaty? I didn't even know this place existed until an hour ago." The Guardian's gaze shifted to Nira. "You know the rules, Nira. No contact with humans. You risk everything by bringing him here." Nira stood her ground. He activated the crystal. It responds to him. I couldn't ignore that. The Guardian's expression darkened. Then he must be destroyed. Alex instinctively stepped in front of Nira. "Whoa, hold on. I didn't ask to be part of your ancient war. I just want to leave." The Guardian raised his hand, and the air around them crackled with energy. Nira's skin flared brightly as she pushed past Alex. "No, you can't." Before she could finish, the Guardian lashed out with a bolt of energy, aimed directly at Alex. Without thinking, Alex threw his hands up. But instead of pain, a strange warmth flooded his body. The bolt of energy stopped inches from his chest, suspended in midair. The Guardian's eyes widened in shock. Nira gasped. "It's happening." Alex lowered his hand slowly, the energy dissolving around him. "What was that?" he asked, his heart pounding. Nira took a shaky step forward. "The artifact. It's chosen you." The Guardian's expression hardened. "Impossible." But Nira's gaze didn't waver. "It's not impossible. The bond between our races, it still exists, and Alex carries its imprint." The Guardian's grip on his weapon tightened. "If that's true, then he is more dangerous than I feared. You know what happens when the bond grows." Nira glanced at Alex, her expression conflicted. "I know," she whispered. "But maybe this time it will be different." The Guardian's eyes narrowed. "I will give you one chance, Nira. Take him and leave. But if he returns, I won't hesitate to end him." Nira nodded slowly, pulling Alex by the arm. "Come on. We have to go." As they hurried toward the entrance, Alex glanced back at the Guardian. "What happens now?" he asked. Nira didn't answer right away. When they emerged back into the clearing, she finally spoke. "Now we find out why the artifact chose you, and why my people fear it so much." Alex's chest tightened. Whatever lay ahead, he knew there was no turning back. The sky had darkened by the time Alex and Nira emerged from the underground chamber. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest. The air felt colder, heavier, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Nira's grip on Alex's wrist tightened as they moved swiftly through the alien forest. Her glowing skin flickered faintly, casting pale light on the twisted, purple foliage around them. Alex glanced back, half expecting to see the Guardian following, but there was nothing, only silence. You really think he's just going to let us leave? Alex asked, keeping his voice low. Nera didn't look at him. No, he's giving us a head start. That's all. Alex exhaled sharply, his nerves on edge. Great. So we're running from a guy who shoots lightning from his hands and thinks I broke some ancient treaty I didn't even know existed. Nera finally stopped, turning to face him, her glowing eyes locked onto his. Listen to me, she said firmly. The Guardian isn't just one person. There are more. They watch over the artifacts and enforce the laws of my people. If they believe you're a threat, they won't stop until you're gone. Alex's stomach tightened. Gone as in. Nera's expression hardened. As in dead. Silence hung between them for a moment. So, what do we do? Alex asked, running a hand through his hair. Nera looked toward the distant mountains that rose beyond the forest. There's a place we can hide. Far from here. The Guardians rarely go that far. Alex frowned. And how far is far? Nera hesitated. About 3 days on foot. 3 days. Alex's eyes widened. Nera, I'm not sure I can outrun lightning for 3 days. Her gaze softened slightly, but she didn't smile. I'll protect you. I promise. Alex sighed, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. All right. Lead the way. They had been walking for hours. The dense forest stretched endlessly around them, and the faint glow of bioluminescent plants flickered beneath their feet like stars trapped beneath the earth. Nera moved gracefully, almost silently, while Alex struggled to avoid tripping over roots and rocks hidden beneath the foliage. As they pressed forward, Alex's thoughts drifted back to the chamber, to the artifact, and the strange way it reacted to his presence. Finally, he broke the silence. That crystal, the artifact. Why did it respond to me? I don't understand. Nera glanced at him but didn't stop walking. The bond between our races is ancient, Alex. Even if the war is forgotten, the connection lingers. The artifact recognized something in you, something that hasn't been seen in centuries. Alex raised an eyebrow. You're saying I'm part of some forgotten prophecy or something? Nera shook her head. Not a prophecy. A mistake. That wasn't exactly reassuring. Before Alex could press further, a faint crackle echoed through the trees behind them. Nera's eyes narrowed. They found us. Alex's heart jumped. He spun around, scanning the dark forest. Nothing. But the crackling sound grew louder, like the distant hum of approaching thunder. Run, Nera whispered. Alex didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted through the forest, weaving between twisted trees and low-hanging branches. The sound followed them. Electric, sharp, and unrelenting. They're faster than us, Alex gasped, stumbling over a root. Nera caught his arm, steadying him. Keep going. As they ran, the trees thinned and the ground sloped downward. Ahead, Alex saw the faint outline of a ravine cutting through the landscape. Nera led him toward it. Jump. Alex's eyes widened. Jump. Are you serious? There's water at the bottom. Nera shouted, already leaping forward. Alex hesitated for only a second before following. The wind roared past him as he fell, and for a brief moment, everything seemed weightless. Then, with a splash, he plunged into the cold water below. He surfaced, gasping for air. Nera was already swimming toward the rocky shore. Alex followed, pulling himself onto the damp rocks beside her. His clothes were soaked, and the cold bit into his skin. Tell me that actually slowed them down, Alex muttered, pushing wet hair from his face. Nera's glowing eyes flickered toward the top of the ravine. The crackling sound had stopped. For now, she said softly. Alex leaned back against the rocks, breathing heavily. This is insane. I signed up for exploration, not interstellar hide and seek. Nera crouched beside him, her gaze serious. You didn't sign up for it, Alex, but you were chosen. Alex laughed dryly. Yeah, lucky me. Nera's expression didn't change. You joke, but this isn't luck. The artifact responded to you for a reason. If the Guardians fear that connection, it means you're more important than you realize. Alex met her gaze, the weight of her words sinking in. So what happens if we make it to this place you're taking me? He asked. Nera hesitated. We find answers, and if the bond between us continues to grow. She trailed off. But Alex could guess the rest. They weren't just running from the Guardians, they were running from the bond itself. And if Nera was right, outrunning that might be impossible. As the stars appeared overhead, they set up camp near the base of the ravine. A small fire flickered between them, casting long shadows across the rocks. Alex sat with his back against a tree, staring into the flames. Nera sat across from him, her glowing skin faint against the fire's light. We'll rest here tonight, she said quietly. By morning, we'll keep moving. Alex nodded. And the Guardians? Nera's eyes narrowed. They won't stop, but I won't let them take you. Alex believed her. But deep down, he wondered if it was the Guardians he should fear, or the growing bond between them that neither of them fully understood. The fire had burned low by the time Alex drifted into a restless sleep. Shadows flickered across the rocky walls of the ravine, twisting into shapes his tired mind couldn't ignore. He dreamed of the crystal chamber, but this time it wasn't empty. In the vision, Nera stood at the center of the platform, her glowing skin dimmed as if the artifact was draining her energy. The Guardian loomed nearby, watching in silence. Behind him, more figures emerged from the shadows, tall, armored, and faceless. Alex tried to step forward, but his body felt heavy, like the weight of the entire chamber pressed down on him. The bond will consume you both. The Guardian's voice echoed around him, cold and final. Suddenly, the artifact flared to life, and Nera collapsed to her knees, reaching for Alex as the crystal's glow engulfed her. Save her. Alex jolted awake, his breath ragged. The fire had burned to embers, and the forest around him was deathly quiet. Across the fire pit, Nera sat with her back to him, staring up at the stars. You felt it too, she said softly, without turning around. Alex sat up, rubbing his face. That wasn't just a dream, was it? Nera's glowing eyes flickered as she glanced at him. No, it was a warning. Alex exhaled slowly, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. What does it mean? Why would the artifact show me something like that? Nera hesitated, her gaze lingering on the horizon. The artifact doesn't create visions. It reveals memories, buried ones. Alex frowned. Memories? But that hasn't happened before. Nera's voice softened. Because the bond is growing stronger. The more time we spend together, the more our connection deepens. You're beginning to see the echoes of what once was, and what could happen again. A chill ran down Alex's spine, and the part where you collapsed. Nera's eyes darkened. That was no echo. Silence stretched between them, the weight of her words settling heavily in the air. Finally, Alex broke the tension. So what are we supposed to do? Pretend this isn't happening? Nera shook her head. We can't. The bond can't be ignored. But there may be another way to control it. Alex raised an eyebrow. Another way. Nera rose to her feet, her gaze fixed on the distant mountains. We have to reach the Heartstone. The Heartstone. Alex repeated, standing to face her. You didn't mention that before. Nera's expression softened. Because I wasn't sure if it still existed. It's another artifact, older than the one in the chamber. The Heartstone was once used to strengthen the bond between our races, but it can also sever it. Alex's chest tightened. Sever it? You mean, break the connection between us? Nera nodded, though there was hesitation in her eyes. Yes, but it's dangerous. If the bond has grown too strong, attempting to sever it could harm us both. Alex crossed his arms, frustration creeping into his voice. So, Either we run from the Guardians forever, or we risk dying trying to break this thing. Nira's glowing gaze softened. I know how it sounds, Alex, but if the bond continues to grow, it could consume me. You've seen the visions. The artifact wasn't just warning you, it was pleading for help. Alex paced along the rocky edge of the ravine, his mind racing. Every instinct told him to leave, to find his ship and escape this planet while he still could. But he couldn't. Not after everything he'd seen. Not after everything Nira had done to protect him. Alex stopped, meeting her gaze. All right, we find the Heartstone. Nira's faint smile was laced with relief. Thank you, Alex. By midday, they had reached the edge of the forest, where the landscape shifted into rolling hills and jagged cliffs. The mountains loomed ahead, their peaks shrouded in mist. Alex scanned the horizon. How far is this Heartstone? Nira pointed toward the highest peak. There, it lies beneath the summit. The journey will be difficult. Alex laughed dryly. Difficult? Nira, I've been chased by armored lightning warriors. At this point, I think I can handle difficult. Nira smiled softly. I hope you're right. As they began the climb, Alex noticed the sky had darkened again, not from clouds, but from something else. The air hummed faintly, charged with a low vibration. He slowed, glancing at Nira. Do you feel that? She stopped, her glowing skin flickering uneasily. The Guardians. They're close. Alex scanned the cliffs around them, but nothing appeared. Keep moving, Nira urged. They won't attack until we reach the peak. Alex wasn't sure if that made him feel better or worse. Hours passed as they climbed higher, the air growing thinner. Alex's legs burned with exhaustion, but Nira pressed forward without faltering. Finally, they crested a ridge, and Nira stopped abruptly. Ahead of them, nestled within a natural arch of stone, lay the Heartstone. It was massive, larger than the one in the underground chamber, and pulsed with a deep crimson glow. Alex exhaled slowly. That's it. Nira nodded. Yes, but we're not alone. Alex followed her gaze. Emerging from the mist, the Guardian stood at the base of the Heartstone, his dark armor reflecting the red light. You cannot escape fate, the Guardian said coldly, raising his weapon. Nira stepped in front of Alex. We're not running. The Guardian's eyes narrowed. Then prepare for the consequences. As the sky darkened further, Alex clenched his fists, the artifact's glow reflecting in his eyes. Whatever happened next, he wasn't leaving without a fight. The Heartstone pulsed like a living heart, casting deep red light across the rocky platform beneath Alex's feet. The air was thick, humming with unseen energy that made his skin prickle. Nira stood at his side, her glowing skin flickering faintly as the Guardian approached from the shadows. Alex clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the artifact's presence in his chest. It wasn't just light or energy. It was something deeper, something that tugged at him like invisible threads weaving through his very being. The Guardian stalked just meters away, his dark armor reflecting the crimson glow. His piercing eyes locked onto Alex with the weight of centuries of judgment. You stand on sacred ground, human, the Guardian said coldly. The Heartstone is not meant for your kind. Alex exhaled slowly, steadying his breath. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know this planet existed until a few days ago. The Guardian's gaze shifted to Nira, his expression darkening. And yet you allowed this to happen. Nira met his stare without flinching. The artifact chose him. I didn't. The Guardian's hand hovered over the weapon at his side. The artifact's will can be overruled. You know the risk, Nira. If the bond reaches the point of no return, it will consume him and destroy you. Alex's chest tightened. Enough with the cryptic warnings. What happens if the bond gets stronger? Tell me the truth. Nira hesitated, but the Guardian answered instead. If the bond fully matures, the Guardian said grimly, you and Nira will no longer be separate beings. Her life force will intertwine with yours until she cannot survive without you. And if one of you dies, the other will follow. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Nira, but she wouldn't meet his gaze. That's why you wanted to find the Heartstone, Alex realized aloud. To stop this before it's too late. Nira nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, the Heartstone can sever the connection, but the process is dangerous. If the bond resists, it could kill us both. Alex swallowed hard. So, we either risk dying by breaking it or risk dying if it grows too strong. Great options. The Guardian stepped forward, his voice unwavering. I can end this now. One strike, and the bond will be broken. Alex's muscles tensed instinctively. He took a step in front of Nira, raising his arms defensively. Not happening. The Guardian's eyes narrowed. You misunderstand. I will not harm her. But if the human dies, the bond dies with him. Nira's glow intensified sharply. No, she snapped, her voice cutting through the tense air. I won't let you. The Guardian's hand finally rested on his weapon, but he didn't draw it. There is no other way, the Guardian said softly. The bond is a curse. Nira, you know this. For a long moment, no one spoke. The faint hum of the Heartstone was the only sound, pulsing steadily like a heartbeat. Finally, Alex broke the silence. Maybe it's not a curse, he said, his voice calm but firm. Nira turned to him, confused. What do you mean? Alex stepped closer to the Heartstone, feeling its energy resonate through him. This bond. Maybe it's not meant to destroy us. Alex continued. What if it's something else? Something that was never supposed to be feared. The Guardian's eyes flickered with faint interest. You speak as if you understand the nature of the bond. I don't, Alex admitted. But I know that whatever this is, it's not just random. The artifact reacted to me for a reason. Maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. Nira's expression softened, but uncertainty lingered in her gaze. The bond doesn't have to end in destruction, Alex said, turning toward her. What if we can control it instead? The Guardian's voice was cold. No one has ever succeeded in controlling the bond. It has always led to ruin. Alex stepped forward, his eyes blazing with determination. Maybe because no one tried to face it together. Silence stretched once more. Nira studied him carefully, her glowing skin brightening slightly. You're willing to take that risk? Alex met her gaze without hesitation. I am if you are. Nira exhaled slowly, her glow flickering in response to the closeness between them. The Guardian's gaze hardened. This is reckless. The Heartstone is not to be tampered with lightly. But Alex wasn't backing down. He turned to face the Guardian. If there's even a chance to control this bond, we have to try. The Guardian's cold stare lingered on Alex for a long moment before he slowly lowered his hand from his weapon. Very well, the Guardian said, stepping aside. But if you fail, there will be no mercy. Nira stepped forward, placing her palm on the Heartstone. The red light brightened, bathing them both in its glow. Alex hesitated for only a second before reaching out, his fingertips brushing against the surface of the artifact. A surge of energy shot through him, and the world around them faded into blinding light. When Alex opened his eyes, he and Nira stood in a vast, white expanse. The Heartstone was gone, replaced by a swirling void of light and shadow. Nira's voice echoed beside him. This is the heart of the bond. Alex glanced around. It feels alive. Nira nodded. Because it is. The bond isn't just energy. It's a living force. Suddenly, the void shifted, forming shapes, memories. Alex saw glimpses of ancient battles, moments of unity between Nira's people and humans long forgotten by history. And at the center of it all, he saw a figure, one that looked just like him. Nira gasped softly. That's impossible. The figure turned, its glowing eyes locking onto Alex. The bond has chosen you before, the figure said, its voice echoing like a ghost. "And it will choose you again." Alex stared in disbelief. What does that mean? But before the figure could answer, the void collapsed, and they were back on the rocky platform. The heartstone pulsed softly beneath their hands. Nira pulled away, her breathing uneven. "This isn't over." Alex nodded, his eyes lingering on the heartstone. "No," he agreed quietly. "It's just beginning." The heartstone's red glow pulsed faintly beneath Alex's hand, the energy still vibrating through his fingertips. The white void they had glimpsed, the memories of a past life, of bonds forged and broken, lingered heavily in his mind. Nira's breathing was shallow, and her glowing skin flickered unevenly as she pulled away from the artifact. She stared at the heartstone, as if it might vanish at any moment. "That was real," Alex said quietly, breaking the silence. Nira nodded, though her expression was distant. It was more than just memories. It was a warning. Alex took a step back, letting his hand fall to his side. The crimson glow beneath his palm faded slightly, but the hum of energy still vibrated through the air between them. "You saw him too, right?" Alex pressed. "The figure that looked like me. What did he mean? The bond has chosen you before. What is that supposed to mean?" Nira's eyes darkened as she met his gaze. "It means this isn't the first time a bond like ours has formed. And if he was right, it won't be the last." Alex exhaled slowly, pacing a few steps along the edge of the rocky platform. The sky above had shifted. Clouds hung lower, tinted with hues of violet and red as the sun dipped beneath the horizon. He stopped, staring out at the distant cliffs below. "So, if this bond keeps choosing people, why haven't your people learned to control it by now?" Nira hesitated, her voice soft. "Because each time, the outcome was the same. Destruction. The bond grows until it overwhelms those connected by it. And when one falls, the other falls too," Alex finished, glancing over his shoulder at her. Nira nodded gravely. Alex's chest tightened, the weight of her words pressed down on him, heavier than the artifact's energy. He turned to face her fully. "But we're still standing. We're not dead yet, and the bond hasn't consumed either of us." Nira's glowing eyes searched his face, uncertainty flickering beneath the surface. "That may not last. The heartstone reacted to you, but that doesn't mean we've stopped the process. If anything, the bond might be stronger now." Alex stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then let's stop running from it. The Guardian said no one has controlled the bond before, but maybe they never tried to understand it." Nira shook her head softly. "You think understanding it will change its nature." "I think there's more to this than just danger," Alex replied, his eyes locking onto hers. "The memories. They weren't all destruction. I saw moments where your people and humans coexisted. Maybe the bond isn't meant to destroy us. Maybe it's supposed to unite us." Nira's eyes flickered uncertainly, but something in Alex's words seemed to spark a faint hope. Before she could respond, the wind shifted. The familiar crackle of energy rippled through the air, and Alex spun toward the edge of the platform. The Guardian emerged from the mist, his dark armor gleaming faintly in the fading light, his gaze fixed sharply on Alex. "You activated the heartstone. That was reckless." Alex didn't step back. "We didn't have much of a choice." The Guardian's eyes narrowed. "And now the bond has grown stronger." Nira stepped forward, placing herself between Alex and the Guardian. "He hasn't lost control. The bond didn't overwhelm him." The Guardian's gaze lingered on her, cold and calculating. "Not yet." Alex squared his shoulders. "Look, if you're here to finish what you started." But the Guardian raised his hand, silencing him. "I am not here to destroy you," the Guardian said, his voice calm but firm. "The Heartstone has spoken, and I cannot deny its will. But understand this, the path you walk is dangerous. If you lose control, the consequences will be irreversible." Alex's jaw tightened. "We'll handle it." The guardian studied him for a long moment before lowering his hand. "Very well, but I will be watching. If you stray too far, I will intervene." With that, the guardian turned and disappeared back into the mist, his form vanishing like a shadow fading into the trees. Silence lingered between Alex and Nira as they stood alone beside the hearthstone. Finally, Alex exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Well, that was less lightning attack than I expected." Nira smiled faintly, though the exhaustion in her eyes was clear. "I think he knows something has shifted, but he won't trust it. Not yet." Alex glanced back at the hearthstone, the crimson glow reflecting faintly in his eyes. "So what now?" he asked. Nira stepped beside him, her gaze soft but uncertain. "We move forward. We let the bond guide us. And maybe we learn to trust it." Alex turned to face her, and for the first time, he saw more than just the alien glow in her eyes. He saw hope. "Together?" Alex asked, offering a small smile. Nira's soft laughter echoed in his mind. "Together." The stars began to emerge above them, flickering like distant beacons of light. And as the hearthstone's glow slowly dimmed, Alex knew this was far from the end. It was only the beginning.